Today is Friday, November 22nd. What to know about Matt Gaetz' decision to step aside and withdraw his name from being President-elect Trump's pick for Attorney General, and why there's still some controversy about Trump's new pick for the top job. Also, how the U.S. is responding to an international arrest warrant for Israel's prime minister. Plus, the Justice Department's plan to get Google to break up parts of its company. Which celebrity just had his conviction overturned? And have you heard of Glicked? The two movies hoping to be this weekend's version of Barbenheimer. Those stories and even more news to know coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. There's been a major shakeup to President-elect Trump's cabinet even before he takes office. Trump's controversial choice for Attorney General, former Congressman Matt Gaetz, withdrew his name from consideration. As you know, Gaetz has been facing a lot of scrutiny over allegations of sex trafficking, drug use, and more. He has always said he did nothing wrong. But when he met with Republican senators this week, Gaetz apparently found out he did not have enough support to be confirmed. So Gaetz decided to bow out, saying he did not want to be a distraction to the incoming Trump administration. It's not clear what comes next for him, since he resigned from Congress after being named the pick for AG nominee. For now, Gaetz just says, quote, "I look forward to continuing the fight to save our country, just maybe from a different post." Meanwhile, the president-elect already has a new attorney general choice in mind. Trump says he picked former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, who has been working closely with him for years. She was one of his lawyers during his first impeachment trial. She oversaw voting-related lawsuits after the 2020 election, and she showed up to support Trump at his New York hush money criminal trial. Reports say Bondi could have an easier time getting confirmed than Gaetz, since she has years of legal experience and no sexual misconduct allegations. Still, she's not controversy-free. For example, she was once accused of bribery over a campaign contribution Trump sent her back in 2013, since shortly after the check came in, her office decided not to get involved in a fraud case over Trump University. To be clear, both Trump and Bondi said they did not do anything wrong, and a Florida prosecutor eventually decided there was not enough evidence to support criminal charges. For now, several Republicans in Congress say they're supporting Bondi as the new nominee. That said, another one of Trump's pick is still working to get that same kind of support. Remember how we told you the president-elect's choice for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth also had been accused of sexual assault? Well, a police file from the 2017 case was released with a lot more graphic details that make the whole incident sound a lot different than the consensual sexual encounter Hegseth describes. Criminally, Hegseth was not charged, but the ordeal could still get brought up in confirmation hearings next year. So, to be continued. The U.S. and Israel are criticizing the International Criminal Court for issuing arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former defense minister. The ICC accuses the two men of war crimes related to Israel's actions in Gaza, specifically saying they're using starvation as a weapon and attacking civilians on purpose. It's the first time the ICC has issued arrest warrants against a major U.S. ally, as well as the first time it issued them against the leader of a democratic country. Netanyahu's office called the accusations absurd, false, and anti-Semitic. President Biden called the warrants outrageous, saying there's no equivalence between Israel and Hamas. The ICC did also issue a warrant for the arrest of Hamas's military chief for crimes against humanity. So what do these arrest warrants actually mean? Well, Netanyahu faces the risk of arrest in any of the court's 124 member nations, including most European countries. The U.S. is not a member of that court, though. For the first time, Russia fired an intermediate-range ballistic missile at Ukraine. And it's significant because it's capable of carrying nuclear warheads, even though it wasn't this time. Russian President Vladimir Putin said it was in response to Ukraine's recent use of American and British weapons to strike deeper into Russia. Earlier this week, President Biden had given Ukraine the okay, for the first time, to use U.S.-supplied weapons against military targets inside Russia. Now Putin is warning the West against further escalation. Once again, weather watches and warnings are in effect for millions of people across the U.S. For starters, the storm that started in the Pacific Northwest and then brought record amounts of rain and heavy snow to Northern California is still lingering through the weekend. In fact, some places could see another foot of rain before this storm moves out. So the risk of flash flooding and rock slides will stick around for at least another day. And mountain ranges in Washington, Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming could get several more inches of snow. The snow has actually been a good thing for skiers and snowboarders. Some popular resorts are now able to open. In fact, one popular resort in Lake Tahoe says this is the earliest opening date in 20 years. Meanwhile, the first snowflakes of the season are falling in other parts of the country, from the Midwest to the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Yesterday, Chicago experienced its snowiest November day in 5 years. And now that system is moving east. People in some places will just see flurries today, but elsewhere, like in the most elevated parts of southern New York, Pennsylvania, and the Appalachian Mountains, there could be at least half a foot of snow on the ground. That storm is expected to move out by tomorrow. But another one could form in the middle of the country around Thanksgiving. More news still ahead, but first, thanks to our sponsor. I love to focus on those little moments around the holidays that feel special. Instead of trying to force the magic, I found it's truly those cozy times with my family that are the best. And the SKIMS holiday shop has so many great pieces to enhance that time at home. I picked up another one of my favorite soft lounge sleep sets, this time from the SKIMS holiday shop, in a really fun seasonal red color, and I'm obsessed with it. I wear this around the house, cuddled up with a cup of hot tea, maybe some hot cocoa. I appreciate that it's matching, and it's not only cozy, but also super cute, so if we snap a family photo mid-cuddle, I'm all set. I'll definitely be buying the soft lounge sleep set and my other favorite from the holiday shop, the cozy robe, for some of my loved ones on my list this year. Shop SKIMS holiday shop at skims.com. Available in styles for women, men, kids, and even pets. And if you haven't yet, be sure to let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Now back to the news. The U.S. Justice Department wants Google to break up. A judge had already called Google's search business an illegal monopoly. Now the DOJ wants the company to sell its Chrome internet browser, which is the most popular browser in America. U.S. officials also said Google may have to get rid of its Android mobile operating system. These are just some of the recommendations filed in court this week in a case accusing Google of using its many products to dominate internet search and search advertising while pushing aside competitors. Google called the government's recommendations a staggering proposal that would hurt consumers and endanger privacy. Now, it's important to note final decisions on what to do about Google's search monopoly won't be made until April. That's when a 2-week trial will determine Google's actual punishment. One complicating factor to keep in mind, the Department of Justice Google will see in April will be different than the one it faces now, since it will become part of the new Trump administration in January. Payment apps like Venmo, Apple Pay, and more act like banks. Now the federal government says they'll have to be regulated like banks too. A new rule from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau says the agency now has the authority to police payment apps that handle more than 50 million transactions a year. That means the CFPB will be able to proactively keep an eye on privacy and fraud concerns, and companies won't be able to freeze or close someone's account without notice. Right now, the government usually only gets involved when someone files a complaint, since most of these apps are run by tech companies and not financial institutions. All told, only 7 platforms will be affected by this new rule. In addition to Venmo and Apple Pay, Zelle, Amazon and Google Pay, Block, and PayPal will all have to follow these new rules. Though one area this does not affect is cryptocurrency. The CFPB said its oversight will only apply to transactions conducted in U.S. dollars. The Illinois Supreme Court has thrown out actor Jussie Smollett's conviction for faking a hate crime. Remember this case? Smollett, an actor from the show Empire, said he was the victim of a racist and homophobic attack near his Chicago apartment in 2019. But police later said he paid 2 brothers to stage the attack, and the brothers admitted they were paid to go through with it. Prosecutors had said they did not have enough evidence to get a conviction, so they dropped the charges in exchange for Smollett's $10,000 bond and community service. But that decision led to backlash. So a special prosecutor was appointed who charged Smollett, leading to a jury finding him guilty. He was sentenced to 150 days in jail, though he only served 6 days before he was let out while he appealed his case. Now, 3 years after his conviction, judges said Smollett's rights were violated. They said authorities had already dropped charges against him, so he should not have been prosecuted again. Smollett has always maintained his innocence, though this new ruling doesn't actually weigh in on whether he's guilty or not. And it's still not the end of the story. The city of Chicago is suing Smollett for reimbursement of the money spent to investigate this attack. Meanwhile, Smollett is countersuing the city for malicious prosecution. Well, there's another collision of 2 blockbuster movies, and film fans are calling it Glicked. Like Barbenheimer last summer, the release of Barbie and Oppenheimer at the same time, Glicked is a mashup of two movies people are excited to see, Wicked and Gladiator 2. And just like Barbenheimer, these two new movies could not be more different. Wicked is an adaptation of the wildly popular Broadway musical, a retelling of the Wizard of Oz story starring Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. And Gladiator 2 is an action-packed sequel set in Roman times starring Denzel Washington and Paul Mescal. So will Glicked be able to match Barbenheimer's success, which brought in almost $250 million its opening weekend? Industry experts are skeptical, but the box office numbers should give us the answer by Monday. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Feel Good Friday, when we bring you one extra feel-good or positive news story before the weekend. But first, a quick break. As soon as my son turned 2 years old, I started giving him Hiya children's vitamins every morning. He immediately loved the flavor and the routine of it, and he felt so special having his very own bottle of vitamins. And I loved that Hiya fills in the most common gaps in modern children's diets to provide the full-body nourishment that he needs. Well, a year and a half later, and Hiya is still part of our everyday. In fact, now he takes both the children's vitamin and the children's probiotic. I definitely recommend checking out the probiotic as well. And I chose Hiya over many other options, even before they were a sponsor of this podcast, because it is not filled with sugar and gummy junk like so many others are. Instead, it's formulated with the help of nutritional experts and pressed with a blend of organic fruits and veggies, then supercharged with 15 essential vitamins and minerals to support immunity, energy, brain function, mood, and so much more. So we've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy. This deal is not available on their regular website. So go to hiyahealth, hiyahealth.com/newsworthy and get your kids the full-body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. Okay, now back to Feel Good Friday. The UK's largest mobile network provider is using artificial intelligence for good. The company decided to take a unique approach to fighting phone scammers. It made an AI-generated grandma that uses up scammers' time. The mobile network provider O2 created Daisy, a chatbot that pretends to be an elderly woman who keeps scammers on the line with long, pointless conversations. She'll even give out fake personal information like made-up credit card numbers and bank information. It's a practice called scam baiting. The idea is the longer the scammers spend on someone who will never actually fall for the trick, the less time they have to really scam another person. O2 has plugged Daisy's number into lists that scammers are likely to target in hopes they'll get tied up with Daisy. And since she isn't real, she can talk for as long as possible to as many scammers as possible. Here's a short clip from the company's video about it.
So W's then a dot.
3 times W and then dot.
I think your profession is bothering people, right?
I'm just trying to have a little chat.
All right, thank you so much for listening today. We will be back tomorrow with our special edition Saturday episode, all about the best things to buy on Black Friday next week, how to get deeper discounts, and more holiday shopping tips and strategies. Then join us again Monday for another Daily News Roundup. For now, thank you so much again for listening and have a great weekend.